Excellent, Sly! You've beaten all the Master Thief sprints and unlocked all the designer's commentary. Check out this fascinating behind-the-scenes movie.
How should I describe Sly Cooper? He's charismatic, suave, debonair,
Cool, slick, fast, stealthy, athletic. He's a daredevil.
Sly Cooper is charming thievery.
We started with the idea that we wanted to do an action game where the primary character was a thief. The choice of a raccoon was a pretty natural fit in terms of, obviously the mask being in place, being, as Dev would say, a creature of the night.
We very early on wanted to make a game that looked and felt like a cartoon, but was one step closer to realism rather than flat and graphic. We started experimenting with different ways we could bring this character to life, cell shading, how to make it feel like a cartoon but still feel like a great 3D game.
We want it to actually look like it was inked and painted, and we want the backgrounds to be, really lush and have a painted look, so it looks like it's a living animated episode that you've been thrown into.
When you look at the game, initially the first thing that draws you in is the beautiful art style and lush, very, very lush look of the environments. But when you actually play the gameplay itself is lush as well.
The original conception of the Sly character was a much more realistic raccoon, chubby and not quite as lithe as the character is now, and it kind of evolved as we went along.
Once we got to that part where he kind of evolved into what he is now, my main job was to take him and try to put every bit of thiefiness into him that I could. He was kind of tiptoeing, and he's really like rearing back to like ease his foot forward, trying to keep all his weight back so his foot falls softly on the ground, and really try to hone his personality through subtleties in the movement and really try to push the thiefiness.
As we wanted Sly to feel really agile, we wanted him to feel like Sly could do the most amazing physical feats. You want to let the player of the game feel like they're a thief. Not like a real thief, like you wish thieves were.
Sly Cooper's story is really cool. He comes from a long line of super raccoon thieves. And the source of their kind of thieving greatness is this book called the Thievius Raccoonus. It's this incredibly valuable heirloom that is stolen from Sly's family when he's very young.
He has come of age, and now he feels it's his noble duty to take back the Thievius Raccoonus.
Sly has two buddies, Bentley and Murray.
Bentley provides a lot of the plans for their missions. He does a lot of things that are very important for Sly to complete his missions. Murray has a huge case of Sly envy. He wants to be Sly in the worst possible way, and he has absolutely none of the capabilities to do it.
A hero's only as good as his villains. We wanted to create villains, making them dangerous, making them menacing, making them goofy, just giving them as much personality as Sly Cooper.
It's a super high bar being in the action-adventure category. I mean, all of the greatest games, the best games that are out there are all action-adventures.
The genre is such that you have to really excel in every single phase of the game. Going from saying Sly should be sneaky to actually having him feel sneaky in the game is hard. You have to start and you have to get the animation right, then you have to figure out how the engine's going to play the animation and how it gets affected by where he is and what he's doing, and how the player can feel in control at the same time.
People are doing shoot-'em-ups and things with, big weapons and things like that. And this is all about character. So you can get the feeling of, I am Sly and I'm sneaking around. Anytime we can exploit anything in the environment, build it in a way that, as Sly's running over, it might seem more stealthy. We completely exploit that.
And our golden rule is whatever is thiefier wins.
If you want to make a game that looks different, The PS2 gives you the opportunity to do that.
As a programmer, it has a ton of tools for solving all sorts of different types of technical problems.
A big focus for us has been in getting our tool set to the point where the artists were really unconstrained.
Artists will come to us with, they want the game to look this way, or boy, can we have a line around all the characters, the cell shading that we do, or how can we do the lighting models so that things that are bright have certain colors on them. And they have a lot of really cool ideas, and I and the other people on the programming team work on trying to get the technology put in place so that we can make those ideas happen.
What we were able to do was put together our own lighting algorithm in the vector units and then do the same thing for the cell borders that we put around all our characters. We could get it to all run super fast and have it all look different than other games. That was really our goal from the start, was to have a game which looked different.
It's been an interesting process building a team to build a game like this.
It's been great working with such a dedicated group of people. I've never really ever worked with a group I think as hardcore as this.
It really does require unbelievably talented artists, unbelievably talented programmers, and unbelievably talented designers.
How you doing?
The designers, I think, have done a wonderful job of giving players the experience of sneaking and being a thief, and at the same time making the designs accessible to people so that you don't need to be a super gamer in order to play it, although there are tons of things that are in the game for those people.
We're making a game that anyone can play.
You can't just have great art, you can't just have great code, you can't just have great characters, you gotta have it all.
It's not about just how the game looks, it's about how the game plays and how the player experiences it, and it's all about having fun.
You can make a really cool character, but if he's not fun to play, it's not worth doing.
Sly is cool, he's collected, he's adventurous.
Sly is Sly. It is not a misnomer.
Whew. Okay, that took 2.5 hours. Now to go through all the commentary. If I can figure out how to activate that. Ah, there it is, L1.
So this is the approach leading into Raleigh's Store Machine boat. And this is one of the first levels of the game we made. And it has been gone over and over and over, and as the characters changed, as his jump length changed and jump height changed, this level got changed too.
Right.
And it's also sort of like the test bed for the lighting, right? Hokyo, you did all the lighting in the game.
Right.
What kind of stuff was going through your head when you were making this level?
Before I do any lighting, the artist, me and included other artists, we trying to get the right color palettes, get the right mood of the time. The main goal that I was trying to do for this game was not making it too dark, but you still get the sense that you're at the nighttime.
Is it hard to do to kind of get a versatile set of colors going on to represent night,
Right.
but not be kind of Las Vegas-y?
Right. As you can see the game right now, you have tealish shadow all over. That is our shadow. Most of the game uses black as the shadow, but we have different lighting that can make the shadow. We can choose the color shadow. We can make it pink, blue, whatever color, and we can give the intensity and stuff like that. So it's just a lot of time consuming just trying which shadow works the best with these textures. That was the most time consuming was with the textures. Does it works well with the blue? If it doesn't, then we slightly change the saturations or the colors of the textures. We did a lot of process on those in this level.
How many times do you reckon you went through this level and relit it?
Maybe more than 30 times.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is intense.
Yeah, because we're dealing with the fog and the shadow, and the most important thing is the brightness. if the game is too dark, everybody has a different TVs, so it might look very dark on some people's TV, and it might look very washed out, very bright. So that was very challenging for me to making it kind of getting it light, the brightness.
Mm-hmm. You've got a really weird setup here at work where you've got your computer monitor and then 3 TVs right next to each other while you're doing your lighting. And one is a bright TV, one's a normal TV, and one's a dark TV.
Right. The reason that I have a 3 different set of TVs, I wanted to see the game with really kind of washed, bright, and also very, very dark. So my goal is trying to make it all same with those 3 different monitors, trying to get it all same brightness and the colors.
Alright, so that's level 1. 5 more in this world, and then 6 more in the next one, and then 8 more in the next 2. Dang, barely missed.
You may be saying this level is large, but it is actually a third of the size of the original level.
The original concept behind the original NPCs was to tie them to Alice in Wonderland.
What was challenging in lighting this level, Okio?
You have fire in here, you have multi-levels, you have lasers.
Yep.
Okay, the hardest thing for this level was you have 2 different kind of setup here. One is very cold. You start with cold, and at the end you get hot. So we have we can only use 1 fog in this level, actually for every level. So choosing the right color of the fog was very difficult to stay kind of same. I mean,
Keep it consistent with the other levels.
right.
Just having that progression from cold to warm from the very start.
Wasn't there an octopus, or was that in a long, long time ago?
That was in a long, long time ago for this level.
Kind of closer there behind.
It was behind.
We were
the
very
door.
sad when it was removed.
Yeah.
It was quite large. It's a sad day.
It was a huge octopus head, and you got to knock its eyeballs out of its sockets, and knock its teeth out of its
And its eyes
head.
looked at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty creepy, wasn't it?
And he had a bow tie. Our NPCs were all kind of formal, wearing formal wear.
Well, they put that in Super Mario Sunshine at least. Oh, commentary's over. Back to the map.
After doing the crankshaft level, we decided that it would be impossible to finish this game with levels that are that size. So we decided we were kind of in this mode where, okay, that was a regular big level, and we'll also do these smaller levels that are kind of bonusy. And we wanted to do one that was just pretty much all secure, as much security as I could put in. So this is going to be a small security level, and it ended up being actually pretty
Good, great size.
a good size. For security in the game, we decided to go with a kind of 1 free hit per system, I guess you could say, where they're kind of in sensor mode. They're yellow, and they don't actually cause damage to you if you trigger it, but it sets off the alarm and changes them to a damage, this kind of red damaging state. And we primarily did that, for inexperienced players to give them an extra, an extra chance to get through, instead of just hurting them every time. And also because we like the idea of you running around while the alarms are blaring, and it's loud, it's a little disorienting. It's something, if it immediately burned you, a lot of people would probably, die then and wouldn't get that experience of running around while the alarms are blaring. So we thought that was a good thing. So we switched to the kind of one free hit, I guess, per system.
We were under really tight constraints. The challenges of creating this environment, one of our best traits is that we have a great way of communicating. So between the designer, modeler, and texturist, we made sure that whatever we were creating could get done in the time we had available. We really adjusted when we had to. We adjusted things in the model to work for gameplay. And then also before I did my final handoff, I really talked to the texture artist, because he had like a limited amount of time and said, hey, this is what I did. And I really tried to model it toward him being able to texture it in a fast period of time and also look great. So it was really great. We really talked about, and we learned a lot about our game designer process through this. After this, Rob started doing almost all the elevation final, doing any turns, adding any elevation changes, and so it really helped the whole process along the way.
And this is also I think our last level that had split collision versus what you see on screen versus what you, kind of the physics that you're running around on. So this really was
a transition.
Yeah, a transition from how we did levels, and it was. I think it really helped us get in a position where we could finish the game.
Yeah, that's totally true. We do stuff fast, yeah.
Give me that life. Cunning disguise. Literally a barrel.
This is another one of these levels where actually the key is available right at the beginning. You can see where it is. It's a little small, but still the key is right on this ledge, very, very close to that main, that first elevator when you go in. And so you're going to end up going into the level and coming all the way back out on a different level.
Brian actually did some initial kind of level layouts for this.
Yes.
And that's what got me started in the kind of really double-deckering the game path in here.
And we did that in other places too, but this was like the first where we really did a serious double-decker, different types of kind of challenges on the top and the bottom. And
right. And Hoagie also did the texture maps for all the NPCs. Kind of, you really unified their kind of visual style in a really good way.
The main problem for our levels, I mean, my goal is to make it not dark, but give it the night sense, and especially like this level is an interior, but you still get the night light. So it was pretty difficult for me to do the lighting at first.
I know we've changed lighting models.
3 times?
3 times.
Right.
So each time you got to learn the new tricks of the new lights and then change all those out.
Right. That was kind of difficult at first, learning through the new lighting system.
Mm-hmm.
But it really helped the visual, since we have the shadow. Most of the game doesn't have the shadow system, so shadow turns to just a black. they cannot make it to the colors. And thanks to our programmers that made it happen.
When you collect the key on this level or any of the other levels, you'll notice that the background kind of completely goes dark, and we kind of go into this letterbox and show you this animation of Sly picking the key, and it's kind of funny. We use this alternate lighting model to darken everything else at this very base level. It was a weird kind of just hack feature I put in to just darken everything. But then you have to say, well, I don't want to darken Sly because he's the one collecting the key. So Sly is actually marked as like, don't darken me, but he's the only thing in the whole game that's marked that way. Oh, and the key is marked as don't darken me. But everything else in the game gets darkened by this alternate lighting model when you collect your keys.
Which one was it? Fire down below. There we go.
This level began with just the kind of mechanic of this wheel that you can interact with by running on it. And it's kind of one of the few more puzzly kind of elements in the game where it's, you know, when you walk up to this thing, it's not completely straightforward what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, it's not immediately obvious what that wheel is used for.
So, you know, getting, in both these cases, it's, you know, driving, you know, running on it drives the animation of another, something else in the scene, whether it's the hooks or the conveyor belts.
Right.
And I don't know, I know you've done some rigging in here.
Yeah, I actually had done the rigging on both of the wheels, and so that was a little bit challenging from the perspective of the conveyors. You know, the conveyors that we've got in the back wall there with regard to the getting the textures to actually go with the speed of the conveyors. That was the challenging part of rigging this, was doing that work, but most of the rigging just was driving the animation, changing the speed of the animation of the hooks going around, or changing the particles of the steam coming out of the whistle.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's what the extent of the rigging was.
The hot coals that roll down on the floor, it's something that I've stuck to my guns on this. A lot of people have not liked the hot coals because
I think they're great.
Because it's kind of this random thing. It's not something it's totally easy to predict. Even though the floor has been modeled with kind of these dips to really, you know, they pretty much they're real physics, but they're going down a pretty similar path just because of the shape of the floor.
There's kind of a valley there that takes it right down to the grating and then back around again.
We're kind of actually moving, when the coal gets to the bottom of the shaft, we just move it to the top where it comes out of to respawn it. So it's kind of like a transporter or something like that. Mm-hmm. And at one time, instead of the clues, we had these bags of loot that they would roll on the ground. And it was funny when you would break like a safe open and this bag of loot would come out, and it would roll down this hill because it's designed for these coal to roll down, and then it would fall down the chute, and then the money would come out of the chute where the coal's coming from. So it kind of revealed exactly how we were doing this.
Yeah. I can imagine a player seeing the loot going down and going, "Oh no, I just lost it," and then looking at the chute, and there it is popping out.
All right, now the gunboat graveyard.
So this started off as a puzzle where you were going to come to the end of this boat deck, and actually the top of the boat deck where the first starfish throwing NPC now is, was going to be the training section. And the idea was going to be that there was going to be invisible lasers all over this area, and you were going to have to spray something into the ahead of you to expose the beams, either smoke or frost or something in front of you. And so it was actually laid out very rectangularly, and there were all these things to jump on, these floating platforms to jump on, and you had to kind of, each time you did a jump, you had to kind of look around you for the invisible lasers and then make your next jump. And as we backed away from the puzzly, slower gameplay, that was the first idea that went away. Yeah. So then what came?
Well, there was also the idea of once you got to the rear set of the buoys that floated on the water, that there was a giant fish that was sitting below you.
Oh yeah, the giant fish.
And he was the one that paced you and made you want to move forward faster and get through the level, or otherwise he'd come up and gobble you up.
Yeah, so the giant fish, he got cut. Giant fish got cut.
We definitely learned a thing or two about physics engines in games. How the predictability of something animated over relying on the physics engine to work itself out is usually...
Yeah, the physics engine tends to work well in really clean, isolated situations, or in shrapnel, or in other situations where you want good-looking sort of ambient animation, but not as good for stuff that has to work 100% of the time, super predictably. And then I think environmentally, I think this was one of our first levels that really had a good kind of, I don't know, misty, really rich kind of textured feel to it. You know, the fire on the side, which you can see from outside, and the approach even.
All the moss hanging off of everything, and just kind of...
Yeah, a lot of really kind of organic richness in this level, especially back, you know, when there was fish and all that stuff. The water's, you know, being space warped and, you know, has some interesting stuff going on, and, you know, all the surface effects that the texture artists put in, all really, I think, made this a really good looking level, and one that we kept investing in because it was something that, you know, the surroundings were so appealing that we wanted to make sure we used it in a really constructive way.
The wisps floating through the air and whatnot, with the fire in the background, brought out a great richness in the environment. I remember when I first loaded it into the world after it had just gone through this massive change, and it was just one of the most spectacularly beautiful levels that we had at the time. That it was just exciting to go back and play through it.
Alright, were there any other ones? Treasure in the Depths, Gunboat Graveyard, Cunning Disguise, Fire Down Below, Prowling the Grounds, Heist, Into the Machine, and Stealthy Approach, so nope. Okay. World 1 commentary. Rocky start. Where's the commentary? Alright, go somewhere else and then come back. I might have accidentally done something.
This level started with just experimenting with the field of view of the camera. This kind of, it's a lot more extreme and more kind of fish-eyed lens than any other level in the game. And once that was in, it was like, well, this is very much like Vertigo, you know, you get this feeling of vertigo from being high and seeing the ground below you. So that's why I tried to make the design be like this, you know, the sides of the building or a skyscraper as they're going up. So
yeah, and we ended up
motivate that.
Yeah, we ended up doing it on the inside, kind of the hotel, sort of in a kind of a.
This level started with just experimenting with the field of view of the camera. This kind of, it's a lot more extreme and more kind of fish-eyed lens than any other level in the game. And once that was in, it was like, well, this is very much like Vertigo, you know, you get this feeling of vertigo from being high and seeing the ground below you. So that's why I tried to make the design be like this, you know, the sides of the building or a skyscraper as they're going up.
Yeah, and we ended
help
up
motivate that.
Yeah, we ended up doing it on the inside, kind of the hotel, sort of in a kind of an atrium or a courtyard in theory. We invented these bouncers. This was actually the first place in the game that we had used, in this case, an awning, but anything that would bounce Sly upwards, and really started to tune and play with that gameplay about, you know, how high should they each bounce and what's the right amount to give the player control while he's in the air. And really the combination, I think, of the unique camera angles and a huge amount of bouncing on things and jumping up and down on things really kind of defines the concept for this level. It presents some good challenges. Once it sort of took on this retro feel, kind of playing like a 2D side scroller. Our producers at Sony even, you know, kind of took us to task once or twice about how retro that felt. But the retro feel also had a big impact on the kinds of NPCs we could use in this level.
Oh, definitely.
Because you needed an NPC that could work well in a really confined space. And in fact, the original design for the ball and chain NPC had him swinging the ball in the wrong hand for this level. And we had to change him so that he would be comfortable with his right side up against walls. From a secondary standpoint, I thought that the introduction of the air conditioners was a good idea because it was this sort of skill element that required you to pay attention. And
Right. It was one of the few really leftover in terms of mechanics from some early designs for the game, where there are these things called break falls, where you would, you know, it was like the air conditioners where each one you hit, it would fall away. So it was very much the environment's kind of getting destroyed and your choices are getting limited as you're going. So you have to do it, you know, pretty much do it right the first time.
yeah, the stealth sections, these were some of the earlier sections to use the duck and to use cameras fairly heavily. I thought pretty successfully in this case. You know, you get some different looks than you see elsewhere in the game. And the last section in the bedrooms, sort of the bouncers go up through the ceilings, which was kind of a fun change. Gave us some real sense of three-dimensionality as you kind of pass through the floors. That was a fun change. And then the big finish, the precarious big finish, where you have to sneak out onto the sign. I don't know, all in all, a pretty successful level.
All right, back down to the start. Dang it. Do I have to press it while it's doing that animation? Sheesh.
This is the only level in Mugshot's world that actually is a casino. And originally, when we had set off to make Mugshot's world, it was all going to be casino. We just sort of weren't that interested in doing a whole casino world after doing one.
So we had to find lots of stuff around it. That's why we have buildings outside of it and the rooftop on top of it.
Well, it was just more interesting going through the urban environment than it was kind of making your way through these slot machines and dodging the gangster dogs.
Kind of like real Vegas, where it's interesting for the first time you see it and for a little while, and then after a while you kind of get numbed.
But it's based on real casinos that have a lot of water and swinging, sparking cables.
Yeah.
That you've seen, real casinos you've been to, over in Tulalip.
No, in fact, it's not. It's not. This level features a couple game mechanics that we use all over the place, but in here it's pretty pronounced, and that's when you get up on top of chandeliers and you're looking down on a guard, where the whole point is to get the drop on your opponent, jump down and smack them in the head with your cane. I think this was the first place we did it, and we use it all over the game, but there's some pretty clear examples in here. And oddly enough, even though you're many, many feet away from your opponent and you can go anywhere, whenever we see people playing, they instinctually bash people in the backs of their heads from above, so it seems to be pretty core to human behavior. Another very core Sly Cooper kind of gameplay concept is what we call M+1, an M standing for mechanic. So when you're playing the second half of this level and you're jumping on those spinning roulette wheels, you'll notice that the first set you're on, they're not dangerous at all. And that's just to teach you sort of what it's like to be on these wheels that have little partitions and they're moving. And then the second one you get to has dangerous tabs in them. So you have to kind of watch out where you're jumping. That's M+1. The +1 is the dangerous tabs. Then you get to the third set of wheels and you're at M+1+2. And the 2 is the laser beams, which you can't cross. So you need to get between the wheels fast. And then you get to the fourth set of wheels and the wheels are going in the opposite direction. If you sit and you play this game, or the second half, and you really look at how the difficulty is ratcheted up one wheel at a time, it's crazy clear that that's how we try and increase the tension in the gameplay, but not overwhelming the player off the bat with complexity, because you're taught each little mechanic along the way.
Alright, well, probably would have been better if I'd actually gotten to this part while they were talking about it, but meh. And there's the reverse. Map. Rocky start. See if I can't get it to actually start correctly.
So the second approach of the game, this one actually was touched by a lot of people too.
Yeah, originally it was a huge junkyard that you were navigating through.
Yeah.
It was really confusing for the player to know where they needed to go and what was a wall and what wasn't, because everything was equally interesting.
Right.
As it was just piles and piles of trash.
Like some breakables, but some not. And it was really sort of dissatisfying to play.
And then it sort of morphed into this mesa thing, primarily to define space that you could and could not walk on. As the player would progress in towards Mesa City, you get more of that kind of abandoned, desolate, not so much junkyard feeling, but ghost town vibe.
Definitely.
As you went from no man-made structures, and then you find a shack, and then you get to like a house, and then a building, and then multiple buildings, and then this sort of subway terminal.
Right.
All of which are progressively denser and denser kind of urban images.
So in this level, you've got the stick guy, you've got the dog, the leash dog.
Oh yeah, there's 4 actually that I did in this level. There's the stick guy, there's the card thrower, there's the bulldog on the leash, and there's the jailbird dog.
What do you call you have kind of pet names for all the NPCs?
Yeah, I have names for them because I hate calling him stick guy and stuff. So.
You don't like stick guy?
Polly.
I don't like stick guy. I'd rather call him Gorgeous Lou.
Gorgeous Lou?
Gorgeous Lou is the stick guy. The card thrower is Inkspot Jackson. Dalmatian, obviously. The bulldog I never had a name for. Because I think the bulldog was actually... I didn't do the bulldog. I just helped on the animation, but I didn't design him. But, and then Polly Shackles is the jailbird dog.
Who has the best idol of any NPC in the game? Trying to gnaw through his chain.
That's pretty good.
Ball and chain.
Very on theme.
Very much.
It's always cool when the NPC
Inkspot Jackson.
He is showing you what he's going to be doing to you through his idol, so you get a sense what his weapon will be. So they're always more successful. Both those guys do it pretty well. Oh, this level features maybe the coolest security setup of them all, where you have that kind of checkerboard on the floor with the floor sensors and the sweeping lasers. And it looks like you're a goner. There's no way in the world anyone could ever get through this. And you can totally get through it, but the thing is, because the security devices have to sense you before they become dangerous, you can practically run through the whole thing and live for it. You know, but you'll be fine. But it looks just overwhelmingly tough. And I mean, in a lot of ways, that was our goal, and the whole game was to give the perception of crazy difficulty and make it very doable, so that you got that feeling you had done something exceptional and that Sly was a really exceptional thief.
All right. Dog track, back alley heist, straight to the top.
I did the kind of layout design for this world using Legos, and it actually turned out pretty close to to what I did. I knew it was going to be a rooftop, so having being kind of constrained by the general blockiness of Legos seemed like it was fine. And it helped me get the elevations worked out, and I found it easier than doing it on paper because of all the, it's going to be done in 3D anyway. So if you're throwing it together with Legos, you can get, kind of hold up to your face and look at it from all these different angles and try and imagine what shots you're going to have in it. So I think it was the only level I did with Legos, but I think it helped a lot.
Compositionally, the level was really fun to work on. It was, once he had the letters done and we knew the elevation, then I went in and even from the very first shot, you'll see that nothing overlaps each other. So the level doesn't feel like extremely
gorgeous Lou. Yep.
Super full, but it doesn't feel like it's all a bunch of clutter. And dealing with NPCs, they were really fun. We had a lot of designs and thought about different ideas that would really relate to the idea of dogs playing poker. That was the theme.
Yeah.
The main theme behind it. So you'll see like the dog throwing cards and having his idols being card tricks, and the slobbering dog, the junkyard dog, which started in a whole different design with the bobbing head. It ended up being one of our most complex characters with blend shapes and really great idol of like chomping on a bone. And then at the top, or actually at the lower levels, you'll see we call it Dog with Stick, which is totally a play on the thiefy dog sneaking around, and how the idea of this big, cumbersome guy being able to walk so agile with the big stick. And then also the final one, which is you see up in the top level, which is we call him Paulie Shackles. And that's a jailbird, and he originally was a woman with a purse, and we found it too offensive, so we had to redesign. We're like, what are we gonna do? We have to redesign with the same gameplay mechanics, and we came up with different ideas, like maybe be an Elvis impersonator with a microphone, but the whole idea of the thin string was too hard for a player to see, and the microphone really wasn't that big of an object. And then luckily Travis came up with the idea that it'd be great for it to be a jailbird, him throwing his ball and chain, and it ended up being a really strong element. It's with the big ball at the end and a thick chain. It's really fair for a player to jump it and also know when it's dangerous. So it ended up being a real win-win.
A lot of the other game design stuff that's in this world besides the sign came out of brainstorming sessions with the people who were going to be people like Suzanne and Karen and Dev, who were going to be directly involved in how this level was going to get fleshed out. So like the cars with the clues on them that drop away when you come off of them, I think that was Dev's idea, and having the sign, like the big bone that crashes through the wall and everything like that. So it was one of our better, very collaborative efforts.
Definitely.
Okay. Last call. 2 to Tango. Boneyard Casino. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
I started working on this pretty much the day after I saw the movie and I was pretty interested in the funky rooftop scenes they had in that film and the landscape created by those rooftops. This was the first level that we made that featured the Inspector Carmelita Fox, and it was a real challenge figuring out the gameplay mode for her, because we wanted to have this cop character in the game that sort of made more concrete the fact that you were a thief and that chased you, but at the same time, we didn't want to do a chase situation similar to the games where there was somebody behind you and you were running down screen.
Yeah, we wanted to have something where it didn't involve as much memorization, where it involved a fair amount of reactionary stuff rather than having to memorize the environment. Yeah, this was a particularly challenging level to get sort of cameras done correctly as well as behavior, because we had to focus on 2 different characters at once, and we had to deal with it from pretty strange camera angles. There's a lot of change, so this was definitely a test for doing the camera angles.
It's weird for the cameras in particular because Carmelita needs to be on screen, Sly needs to be on screen, Carmelita's shock missiles need to be on screen, as well as all the areas that Sly needs to jump to or climb on need to be on screen. So you have all these requirements, and at the same time, you don't want to have the camera bonking into like chimneys or pipes or what have you. So if you look at how all the rooftops are
Vinny
laid out, the tallest elements will be at the point on the roof farthest away from the area in which the camera travels, and that's totally on purpose so that you won't be occluding your vision of Carmelita or where you need to go.
Yeah, in this one it's more sort of the upper left corner of each building. So what inspired Carmelita?
Carmelita is a composite of 2 characters. Well, the first thing, right, is that we just wanted to have somebody saying, hey, Sly, you're a thief, because otherwise, you're not really making off with a lot of money here. You're stealing a lot of keys and you're stealing back your Thievius Raccoonus from other thieves. So unless we had a law enforcer telling you explicitly you are breaking the law, it didn't really seem like you were breaking the law, which you are. Anyhow, Carmelita is the product of really wanting to combine 2 characters. One is this inspector character from the Loot series, who's a detective that hounds you, and it's pretty standard, right? It's sort of like Javert and Jean Valjean. A lot of these, works of fiction that are about a criminal character have this tireless cop that hounds them all the time and their relationship. And the second character that we were pretty overtly riffing on was this federal marshal and a bank robber, and they fall in love, but they can't be in love because they're on opposite sides of the law. So Sly and Carmelita, they have that thing kind of going on where she is both his true nemesis and love interest at the same time.
I'm gonna hunt you down, Cooper. You can't run forever.
Man, that one was annoying to get the time trial done for.